Hello, film fans. Welcome to the Film vs. Film podcast. My name is Martin Harries, your host, and I'm joined by the film encyclopedia man, Boaz Dix. We are a couple of filmmakers on occasion, but mainly can't stop yapping about movies. On this podcast, every episode we pick a topic from a film that's coming out at the cinema or on VOD. Myself and Boaz pick our favourite film from that topic, or team up against a guest and battle it out to decide which film will become the greatest film of all time. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Please enjoy part 1. Hello, Podsters. This week we're doing another Legends episode. It's very exciting, and this week we are doing... probably argue in saying that this actress is probably, I guess, the most famous actress around, I guess, in terms of legendary status. Yes, of course, I'm talking about Meryl Streep. So we're doing Meryl Streep films for this week, and we have guests again, people. Jeff from the Love of Cinema pod. How are you, sir?
I'm so great. Thank you so much for having me on. It's such a pleasure.
Awesome. And of course, I'm joined by the Mr. Encyclopedia Man. How are you, sir?
I'm good, thanks.
Do you need to straighten out your head? You all good there?
Yeah, it's all right.
Good. Jeff, tell us about your pod and where can we find you?
Thank you again for having us. It's so great that we're doing this. We are the Love of Cinema. It's a podcast with two of my former roommates and I, so the three of us used to live together, and hence the title, The Love of Cinema. We try to keep it positive. So we're actually sort of a beer drinking podcast that happens to talk about movies. So the conceit is, listening to reading the New York Times and the stuffy critics, that kind of, if they liked 90% of a movie, they would spend 90% of their article talking about the 10% they didn't like. So we have this program where we buzz each other anytime we say anything negative. So we say things negative and we challenge that. We used to have this segment called Was It Really That Bad? Where we would watch Speed 2. Then anytime we said anything negative, just buzz each other like crazy. And yeah, it just sort of, if nothing else, it sort of kills the momentum when you're on that run of shitting on a movie. So that's basically it.
Cool. I'm not sure we could do drinking on our podcast. It would just be a very long episode recording. We could be there for a while.
We start talking very fast in ours by the end of our episodes.
Yeah. So tell us a bit about why you picked Meryl Streep out of the choices. I think it was Faye Dunaway and...
Well, Faye Dunaway would have been a fantastic choice, actually. I want to say it was Sigourney Weaver. I can't remember who else was on our possibilities list, but...
I think it was Jamie Lee Curtis.
That's right. Well... My co-host John and I actually met in school studying to be actors. So John's at USC Film School now to be a director, writer-director, or I guess whatever else you get paid to with a film degree, whatever else you get paid to do. But we were actors. In fact, I remember John was one of the first people I knew who had a Netflix subscription when it was only discs. So he would have 2 DVDs. One would be an actor and the other one would be a movie. So we would go back and forth, watching the inside the actor studio and such. And I just have blind spots with Meryl Streep, even though I widely consider her to be one of, if not the singular greatest film star, at least of the English language of all time. And looking at her catalog, it's I don't know why I have so many blind spots. So it was sort of an excuse to catch up on that and maybe gush a little bit about her.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the case for us as well. I'm I need to see more of her films. There's definitely a few blind spots for me, certainly.
Yeah.
So what is your pick for Meryl Streep films then, sir?
This was actually new to me until about 3 weeks ago. And then I watched it and it was to me, it was like a quintessential. Wow, here we are. Happy. Good morning. I'm in New York time here. Hence I know this is an audio podcast, but I'm wearing my New York swag for you guys.
Nice. Yeah. You didn't stop drinking, have you?
I do. We record in 7 hours, our podcast. So I want to try to make it there. It's a big football weekend here that we're recording on in the States. American football, of course.
It is, yes. I'll be watching.
Yes. Okay, cool.
Hopefully the 49ers win.
I agree. I hate the Eagles. Yes. Okay, cool. This is not the time. Not the time. I'm a Giants fan. We obviously hate Philly.
Yeah.
If they lose, I hope they don't burn the stadium down. Philadelphia fans are okay. I picked Postcards from the Edge for two reasons. Number one, it's streaming. It's on HBO Max, but it's also a Mike Nichols movie. And I hadn't, believe it or not, except for Angels in America, I had never seen any of the Mike Nichols, Meryl Streep movies, and I knew that they were pals. So I just pushed play like 3 weeks ago as soon as I agreed to do the Meryl Streep episode, not knowing I would pick it. And I just thought it was such a unique Meryl Streep comedic performance that was different. Because if we did, as I told you guys last week, if we did Sophie's Choice, it's like,
not a fun one to talk about.
I mean, it's very praiseworthy, of course, but I was happy to have one that we could just have some other things to say about it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I didn't want to be emotionally destroyed 2 episodes in a row, so.
That's right.
Yeah, take 3 weeks off to recover.
So you're not going to find any hard-hitting Meryl Streep picks on this episode, I'm afraid, people.
Out there, though, maybe quirky, but yeah, not out.
Yeah. So what happens in Postcards from the Edge? A short synopsis, please.
Sure. Well, I think it's very important to know going into this. I think it's important to know that this is a Carrie Fisher script.
Yeah.
Yes, that Carrie Fisher.
Princess Leia herself.
I also didn't know that she was a Hollywood fixer. So she was sort of a script doctor for years. She was very feminist, with the way she was portrayed on the Star Wars films and sexualized in pop culture and such. So she apparently had a lot to say about this. And of course, similar to this film, she lived in her mom's shadow. You can't help it. We have the Nepo baby craze going on. I don't know if that's found its way international, but there's the Gen Zers are all talking about why are there so many kids of famous people that are now famous and pretending like that's not why they're anyway, that's not for me to say, but Oh, sorry. What was the movie about? So it's loosely autobiographical of Carrie Fisher. It's based on her book. It's not a memoir. It's fiction, but it's loosely biographical. And it's about a movie star who is reaching middle age, who has a drug and alcohol addiction. And I think the plot is that she is being tasked by the insurance company to live with her mom because she is now a liability due to a drug addiction. And so if she is going to work in the film industry, that she will only get insured if she essentially has a chaperone. So she has to move back in with her mother, who in this case is played by Shirley MacLaine, who is a total scene stealer, everything about her, a tipping the cap to the golden age, queens of Hollywood. And so she has to move back into essentially her mom's shadow in order to keep working and figuring out who she is, who her own identity is in this film world.
Awesome. So, Boaz, what did you make of this one? Postcards from the Edge? Initial reactions?
Yeah, I quite liked it. It was pretty heartwarming.
Yeah, I really liked it as well. I think I'll certainly get into it in screenplay, but I feel like you could probably watch this for hours and hours if it was like a TV show or something. It just there's just so rich in its dialogue, and the dialogue just feels just almost like the score of the film in a way. At times it's so creative and so well written in terms of that. Yeah, it's really great to watch, and and emotional, heartwarming. It's really interesting. So directing then, I think Mike Nichols brings some pure comedy in his visuals in a very dialogue heavy film where he can that fits the tone of the film. Like the dialogue in the break-off scene between Meryl Streep and Dennis Quaid is great and funny, but mainly through pain and emotionality. Then Meryl Streep shoots blanks at him and drives off, and the Spanish gardener has to dive out the way before being squished. So the more I watched it, Mike Nichols brought some more visual comedy to just reset you for each scene kind of thing. He elevates the film to be more cinematic, so it doesn't feel like a play at times. Because I felt like there was danger of that, but I feel like Mike Nichols brings it back to being more of a cinematic experience.
Yeah, I agree. I also really like this. Obviously, I picked it. So, I wasn't going to pick something. And then immediately, despite being on the love of cinema, just started, this is my opportunity to shit on a Meryl Streep movie. As far as the direction is concerned, This is actually, it's funny that we're getting into this so quickly, but this is where I have the problem with the movie. And I only get this on my rewatch. I think the script was funnier than the movie. I think the movie wanted to be funnier. And I think by Mike Nichols maybe stepping back and letting the actors act, which as an actor, I love full minutes of no cutaways and no edits, just letting Meryl Streep and Shirley MacLaine both be in the frame on a 2-shot and just let them go. I do love that. There were just a lot of times there was no music, for instance, and the few times that there were, it was quirky. They had like the Stevie Wonder harmonica and stuff, and it was like, yes, we need that tone. I really think that by the time you get to the line at the end where she's like, I can't feel my life, I'm sitting there going, man, I saw you trying to feel a lot of things during this movie. Like, I think that line could have packed more of a punch if it was closer to a darker comedy. But of course, I like this a lot.
I mean, I found the last scene really interesting where it's just like a single shot on Meryl Streep singing, most of the song, Heartbreak Hotel, for this new movie of Gene Hackman plays the director in the film. Mike Nichols waits and waits for this really long crane shot that goes past everyone on the set, past Gene Hackman to her mother watching her on the balcony. And it's like Suzanne is going to have her moment in the spotlight, without cutting away to shots of people judging her performance, which was kind of echoed a little bit in that previous scene when Suzanne and her mother perform at her party.
Yeah.
Then when she sounds amazing, does Nichols cut to the long crane shot of everyone loving it, including her mother. And then when the shot finishes in Hackman's film, she does the same song again, but like in a more of a country western kind of way. But she's completely let loose, and it's how like Suzanne wants to perform in it, and it's kind of like the only time really she's enjoying life, like the way how she wants to in that last performance. I would say, yeah, it's really interesting how those kind of two performances echo each other. I would say probably the like camera work, there's not massive amounts of stuff here to get into. But I think my favorite shot or scene rather, I kind of like the way like Mike Nichols shows how crazy a film set can be when Meryl Streep walks onto a movie set and the director like swoops down from his director's chair on a crane, says like a sweet hello, then rises out of shot again. Meryl Streep gets help being tied up to the cactus. Then a guy opens a door in the background you didn't even know was there. Then like the first AD says there's going to be cool. Filming with live snakes, and Meryl Streep's expression is like, I'm sorry, what?
She looks around for the snake. It's funny. She's looking around like, where's the snake? It's so good.
Yeah. I like the one where she's like hanging off that building, and then it's like, it's obvious, just, forced perspective and a screen behind. I like.
When she lets go of her hands while
she lets go. Yeah. It's like, oh God,
I think anytime they were on movie set was really where Mike Nichols was flexing his stuff. And I kind of wish he carried that through the whole time. Cause then when it became the smaller scenes, it was kind of like a TV drama of the time period, but it was like, no, this is a movie. And so with the one you mentioned where Simon Cowell, the director, British acting stage royalty, Simon Cowell, he's on the crane and it moves, and eventually it leads to her being on the cactus. But that opening sequence too, I mean, where there's the helicopter lands and you go through, and then it ends and they do the French Lieutenant's Woman thing. It's another Meryl Streep performance where, I guess we now know that it's a movie. We probably can expect that, but maybe not on the first time watching it. And then the way she looks at the camera and then the cut and people just starting to take things. And, I really loved that whole sequence as well. So kudos to Mike for that.
Yeah, but I like the intro scene because I didn't know what the movie was about. And that, it's done in one single shot of her going from her friends and being dragged to a room and then interrogated. The guy punches her and all this. And then it just like, she's laughing as she's saying the line, and then it zooms out and, it's still on the set.
Yeah, right down the barrel, yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and then the Gene Hackman thing, too, where he, in front of everybody, is like, everything's great, you're so fine, we'll do it again. And then when he gets her alone, he's like, don't you fuck up my movie.
Yeah. I'll fucking kill you.
That's great. Yeah. My co-host John, who's far more profound than I am, he's in film school after all, always says like the opening of the movie is you're teaching the audience the language of how to watch the movie, which I guess is a fancy way of saying it's setting tone, but also how that tone incorporates into plot. Is it a more thematic movie or character driven, character study? But in this, I thought it was a great way of learning the language of this movie. We're going to have the big stuff, but it's really going to be mostly about Meryl Streep dealing with these little things and all, like as a satellite where everything is sort of spinning around her, and I thought it was a brilliant way of opening the movie.
Definitely. I did like Rob Reiner's little cameo.
Oh, yeah.
I did have to do a double take.
So claustrophobic.
In that, I was like, hang on, that's Rob Reiner. What the hell?
So much nodding without talking.
Yeah, I just loved his deadpan in his dialogue when he's like, yeah, we just need to make you take a drugs test or whatever. Yeah, again, I just love how Nichols brings comedy direction to the table in kind of just a subtle way without taking too much attention away from the actors. I guess this is a hard question, but favorite shot or scene, Boaz, in terms of the direction? Or is it that opening one, do you reckon?
I think it would be the opening one for me.
I'll throw in another one, which is just because this is a comedy. And so, yes, the opening is the correct answer to your question. But the scene, which maybe I could throw this into a different category, but where Meryl Streep's eavesdropping on them talking about her in the trailer. By them, I mean Simon Cowell, the director and the costumer. And she first of all, she's eating the chips. And so this is the comedy that I wish I had the whole movie. I think Simon Cowell says something like, how do we get her to stop eating? And then it cuts to Meryl Streep. And you don't know that it's going to be like a 2-minute close up on her while we're listening to they're not even in frame, of course, anymore. And she does, for no reason, she goes through this costume rack. Her eyes change when they talk about her saggy breasts or her thighs. Like she has these eyes, and it's this weird close up on her eyes. And it's like, yes, we want to see inside her during this comedic moment. And then it ends with the guy coming in and being like, hello. And while she's still in the clothing rack. I thought that was just a brilliant comedic shot. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, that was funny.
Yeah, because normally in that kind of situation, you would have a bit more cutting to both sets of characters, but they certainly decided to keep it on Meryl Streep, which I think works really well.
Yeah.
Directing score, Boaz, what should we go with? Yeah, I think Mike Nichols does an amazing job, to be honest, and just, as I said, just bringing a little visual comedy here and there as kind of palate cleansers, if you will, to a lot of the emotional, funny dialogue, but yeah, not being too overbearing with the camera work and all that. So I would say a solid 8.3 or something, or just a flat 8. What do you reckon?
7.8.
7.8. Okay.
I'm going to be harder than you.
We're very generous.
I do appreciate letting actors act. I really appreciate that. Gene Hackman has 2 scenes, and he's, a mammoth presence in this film because the director kind of stood back. I'm giving him a 7 because I think him and the script just were 100% on the same page, so to speak, for me. My taste, my preference.
Should we go 7.9 then, or 8?
All right, let's go on with an 8 then.
All right.
Screenplay then. Yeah, the screenplay is really interesting for me. And as you said, Jeff, it's kind of an autobiographical film about Carrie Fisher's life in Hollywood. But what's interesting is that it kind of develops into a competition movie almost between Suzanne and Doris. Who can handle their addictions the best. Suzanne's drug problems are very much front and center, but Doris's drinking slowly emerges more strongly when things are getting really tough. And I love the bit where they're arguing and Doris is making breakfast in a blender. And then when Suzanne leaves, she just pours more vodka into the blender.
Yeah, that was funny.
And it's no big deal. Then they end up supporting each other more, and you feel like they're in a better place in their relationship at the end of the film, but you never felt like there's a definitive end here. You feel like you could watch this film for hours and hours until Doris dies. They end the film that feels appropriate for a film, if you know what I mean, and a happy note in their relationship, but you feel like there's a lot more to explore in their relationship beyond this film medium, I guess. It leaves you wanting more, which for me is a positive note. What do you think about that?
I agree totally. I loved it. I think it's hard in comedies to pull off witty lines because they have to be grounded, but there's this sort of new age. I don't know if you think the same way, but there haven't been a lot of good comedy movies in the past, I don't know, 10 years or so, right? It's kind of note. The dramedy comedies like your Palm Springs tend to do really well. And then the satires aren't quite clicking for me, like your Don't Look Ups and such. But The Menu is one of the funniest movies I've seen forever. And I don't, you know what I mean? And that's just a black comedy, a thriller, really. Anyway, so back to this. There are so many, and they're all rooted in truth. And so it's like, I give the script a very, very high rating because I do think that they could have directed it snappier. That could have cleaned up some of those draggy scenes for me, could have, cleaned up a little bit. But for the most part, you got in there. You had very clear, distinct characters, witty, brilliant lines that were really fun. If you just think about the lines, they're almost better than the way, even Meryl Streep. It's like, I mean, I have a list. I'm middle-aged. Oh yeah, how many 120-year-old women do you know?
Yeah.
Or my favorite line is the Gene Hackman line. Anybody else want to be arrested or killed before we finish this fucker?
That's good.
Every director on every set ever wishes they could say that line. You know what I mean?
I like, what was it? Where he's like, I've got feelings for you. And she's like, what, as in more than two? He's like, for the love of God, like, I'm trying to be serious here.
I get the sense as well that, like, especially the Suzanne Doris scenes between Meryl Streep and Shirley MacLaine, you kind of don't want them to end sometimes. You're just like, I just want to be in their company, even though it's kind of a dark thing to say because they're both really struggling with their addiction. But it's funny though, the way they're kind of like bashing each other in this witty banter. It's very entertaining. Yeah, in a quite a troubling way, I guess.
Yeah. When Shirley MacLaine says to Meryl Streep, like, I don't blame you for my drinking. Why do you blame me for your drug addiction? And Meryl Streep's like, you don't even think you have a drinking problem. So why would you blame me for anything? It's like, it's funny because it's truthful, not just because we're exploiting alcoholism, So I really love this script.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like, a lot of the back and forth is just, they're not like straight answer backs or just dialogue. It's like everything is like a witticism or it's, it cuts straight to the heart of the matter, and it is kind of, it's shocking when they hear it. It's shocking when you hear it, but
yeah.
Is there a case to say that there's not enough of a resolution here in their relationship, or is that enough for you guys?
Yeah, to me, I felt the resolution was her standing up to her grandmother because her grandmother treats her mother the same, kind of belittles her and sort of competes that I would have done it this way. I'd have done it that way. You should have done it this way. And she's like to her grandmother, shut the fuck up, like, just please, grandma, just get out of here. And then she's, and then the mother kind of realizes that, that's how I treat you. I've inherited that. So I did see that as a kind of like a breakthrough moment where she's like, she's like to her, with her mother, I get it. I know you mean well, but you're repeating the same sort of annoying behavior that like gives you all your problems and anxiety, and I understand where it's coming from, but you got to understand me. And I feel like they understood each other for a little bit. So.
Yeah, I guess the film definitely has an emotional cutoff point that ends the story quite nicely. But again, as I kind of said, that
you could keep going.
Like you want to see more,
absolutely,
but only just for the pleasure of being in their company. And obviously, this film is very much playing on characters, which is great. I love films like this where they don't really have to rely on plot. But
like at the end, like most of it isn't solved, but I think the whole outlook of the film, and you could keep going, but where Gene Hackman is telling him about telling her about having a like an epiphany or a realization. He goes, it's not like the movies where, you have a realization and then everything snaps back. It's like it can take weeks or months.
Yeah.
And which is true, so then it's not going to be when everything's fine, everything's just going to be on track.
Yeah, I love that bit as well. Yeah, there was like that scene, the confrontation scene with the grandma. It's always great when there's just another person and then they can sort of join together by teaming up on someone else, so to speak. But I suppose Shirley MacLaine is a brilliant actress. I don't know how she was snubbed for an Oscar for this, but the way she was able to essentially realize her role in passing the generational torch of being like, oh, maybe I am doing that to you. So for me, the if that's the climax of their relationship, the denouement would be just the visual storytelling at the end of Shirley MacLaine being okay, basically being in the background of that film shot while her daughter's on stage. I thought just seeing that was, I'm at peace. The next film we'll talk about does sort of, you know what I mean? Not to give too much away for anyway, but like that does, we do get to see what happens next. And, you know, I don't know if this movie would have benefited from that. So I kind of appreciated that. There's more to say, but we don't have to say it.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of agree with that.
Yeah. The film is very much like a mother-daughter story, and I loved all the scenes between Meryl Streep and Shirley MacLaine. And you feel a lot of Suzanne's pain through those scenes, of course. But the scene that really hit home for me is that she's suffering is the date scene she has with Dennis Quaid's character Jack, and he's telling her that he's falling in love with her from the moment he saw her in a movie she was in. And I was like, she's not falling for this bullshit, is she? Then I was like, oh, she is. You know, she's so all over the place emotionally, trying to get over her drug problem and living with her mother, and that she falls for these lines, these corny lines from Jack. And that was the scene for me that really hit home of that Suzanne is really struggling here, that because she's just so vulnerable to this guy. You know, I was like, wow, she's can't really snap out of this. So favorite lines, people? I mean, for me, there's a lot. I mean, I feel like I slept under an elephant's foot from Dennis Quaid. That was a great one. Oh, there's a great one. I'm Ted, designed to make your life a more annoying place to be. I'm Suzanne, designed to be annoyed.
Yeah.
That's great.
I love the bit about, my favorite line is the early line, of course. So not to give away the game too early with all of those lines that I shouted out before, but anyone else want to be arrested or killed before we finish this fucker is a great line to say right before you're about to say action, right? To scare the shit out of these people.
I think every director should say that.
Yeah, right? With Gene Hackman. Apparently, it is kind of a bummer to hear later on that maybe he was difficult to work with in a negative way. Like maybe it was a little toxic to be right up on set. But I've heard that, which just sucks because I like him so much. And, you know, I still try to let what happens on screen live on. Perhaps there are other celebrities in which that is harder to do. But
to be honest, I'm not kind of that surprised that he's hard to work with on set because, I love the man, and it's like his acting where he can go from calm to like batshit in like 0.1 seconds. I mean, that comes from experience, you know. So I bet that's just how he is.
But I thought he was great in that really tender moment when they're doing ADR in the looping studio. That was
absolutely.
Yeah,
that was very Gene Hackman like. I would say you're not really used to seeing him like that at all. I thought it was lovely.
Yeah, very restrained. That's probably why he was so difficult to work with on set. He's like, I need to be an asshole. I need to scream at someone.
I mean, I was chopping and changing a lot to see what my favorite line was. But mine is Richard Dreyfuss says to Suzanne, we have to pump your stomach. And then Streep says, do I have to be there? That was just a great line to just get into a headspace. You know?
Yeah, sorry, Jeff, I kind of cut you off. You carry on.
No, I wish my co-host did this more when I clearly was like dancing around just saying the fucking thing that I said I would say. So thank you. Good. You know our format. It's in response to that line. And it's always good when you make such an impression. So yes, we know it's Richard Dreyfuss, Academy Award winner at this point already, but he has that moment and he laughs right while they're like pumping her stomach and she can't speak. And he's like, ha ha ha. But then when he gives her the flowers afterwards and he says like, I can tell you're a very sensitive person. Like they found all that out from the insides of your stomach. I mean, the doctor to hit on the patient after he pumps her stomach out so drugs get out is like, I mean, that's why it's good to know that Carrie Fisher wrote this screenplay because she is fucking bold. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, this one is, I don't know, a bit edgy, but I might cut it out later. But Shirley MacLaine like visits Streep in the rehab center, and she has her friend there. She says, "Aretha, what an unusual name. I think my parents were expecting someone black. Are you black?" No. I love Shirley MacLaine's face looking so confused. You know?
Yeah, that was funny.
What's your favorite, do you reckon, Boaz?
It's a very short line, but just instant gratification takes too long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Screenplay score, what do you reckon?
Oh man, in the 9s.
Yeah, it's proper
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Like a 9.2 or something. It's
That's what I was going to say. I swear. I swear.
All great minds think alike.
Yeah, yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, it's just so witty, and I would, I love films that have great rewatch value, and a lot of films that have that are certainly twisty and turny films. You see more things, and this is very much a different experience when you watch those films. But because the writing is just so good and so funny, and the performances are so great in delivering those lines, and it's in some ways it's kind of like a dark hangout film on a film set.
Sure.
Well, yeah, I think as you're saying, like, it's great with the dialogue because there aren't like a huge amount of twists and turns, but even just a simple interaction, between two people that could be written just anyhow, sort of, oh, they want her to take a urine test, or, oh, she's having another argument with her mother. But it's so packed with meaning and witticisms and philosophy that it's like, wow, there's so much in here. Like the dialogue is really, it's dense without being like boring. And you know what I mean? It's like, it's fun. It's fun.
Oh, yeah.
And it's enjoyable. And it doesn't feel like unbelievable that this is something a person would say. So I think it's written really, really well. It's quite extraordinary. So I would definitely rewatch it just for sort of soaking up more of the dialogue.
Are we going 9.2?
How about like a 4, 9.4?
Oh, okay.
Whoa.
Yeah, I'd go a little
high. So 9.2 for Jeff.
Well, fuck. Now I want to give it 9.4. No, 9.2.
Acting then. I mean, I loved, as we kind of said a little bit, I love the opening because it's all quite a relaxed atmosphere after Streep messes up the take in the movie within the film. Gene Hackman plays the director. He's all friendly and huggy towards Meryl Streep. Then Meryl Streep goes to her trailer, still mic'd up, and the sound guy can still hear her snorting. And Hackman sees this, and when Meryl Streep comes out again to greet him, he says, "You fuck up my movie, I'm going to kill you." And the whole atmosphere on the set changes because Gene Hackman is pissed, but he's not even that aggressive at all. But because Gene Hackman is annoyed, everyone's really on edge. Not many actors can do that, I don't think, to have that kind of sort of presence after a line like that.
Yeah, again, he's 2 scenes, but he just looms over this movie in a way, and it's not, you have Meryl Streep and Shirley MacLaine really giving you as good as you're going to get. It's like whatever happened to Baby Jane level, like kind of competitive. Yeah, I love it. And honestly, Dennis Quaid was surprising. I really just never knew him as sort of like the male sex pot. I never knew that.
No.
I don't know if I have blind spots in his catalog as well. I thought he was a middle-aged sports movie kind of guy, personally. And it opens with this beautiful shot of he opens with a beautiful shot of Malibu and obviously a very wealthy, amazing class. And then he just has like a coughing fit in his underwear on the bed. And it's just like a weird way of opening this like love interest, romantic. So shout out to him too. But honestly, the grandma for the cameo performance, she wins best guest actress on this. So she had her 2 lines are just right to the point, buzzy, snappy, really great stuff. But Gene Hackman is my answer.
A lot of this film is about the relationship between Suzanne and her mother Doris in the verbal battles. But I love the acting between Meryl Streep and Shirley MacLaine when Doris makes Suzanne sing at her homecoming party. And I love the acting from Meryl Streep when she's singing because she's keeping up appearances. But right at the end, her last look at Doris is of disdain, which was a brilliant, cold look there. And I love Shirley MacLaine too when she's mouthing away her singing the song, but she's really quite difficult to read to whether she's impressed or not. Just really great acting from her. Just really interesting to figure out whether she's liking this or not. And then Shirley MacLaine steals the night with a really theatrical theater performance of her own at her own daughter's party. And Meryl Streep's reaction is really interesting because on the surface she seems really excited for her mother, but I think Streep brings a little bit of fakeness to her reaction, she's annoyed at her mother for stealing her night kind of thing. So
I think it's kind of it kind of has a feeling of this again, Jesus Christ, you know what I mean? She always does this.
Yeah, what am I saying? It's Meryl Streep. This is one of the best actors of all time. Forget everything I said before. It's almost like we have to like put her off to the side because like this is a very versatile 3-dimensional Meryl Streep performance, and she's very capable of transforming. She doesn't have to, right? Kramer versus Kramer, it looks like her, sounds like her, cries like her, but like in this, I mean, it seems like her, and yet she disappears at the same time, which, you know, is one of those magical things that really is rare now, especially nowadays. It's really hard to pull it off, and it's brilliant. And she's able to do it with style. Dramatic here, comedic here, physical comedy here, very introverted drama here. Like, it's really a tour de force.
Yeah, I loved all like the introverted stuff where you feel like she really wants to like scream and shout, but on the outside, it's just like, she's really struggling to communicate, you know, especially to the people on set and stuff.
That moment with Oliver Platt when he says, like, it's not like somebody farted all over your lines, and she says something like, I'm bathed with assurance after that metaphor or something, and you could tell like she's so full of shit. It's like, yes, that's so brilliant.
Yeah, that was funny. I like where she's like getting quite depressed about everybody saying like, you know, she's holding something back and criticizing her acting. And she's trying to talk to the director about it. I only want you to say that stuff to me because like 1 million people are saying it. And then she gets and they're like, oh, but you are holding something back. And she gets really pissed off. It's like, and she kind of explodes. And he's like that, do it like that, you know?
Yeah.
I quite like that. I thought that was funny.
I mean, Shirley MacLaine is great as well. You know, I love her in The Apartment, one of my favorite comedies of all time.
Oh, yeah.
And she kind of brings a little similar energy here, but just as a mother figure. And she's just brilliant. You just wouldn't want her as your mother at all, I don't think, even though I love the performance. But she's just very overbearing at times towards Streep. And she does seem to try and control her life through everything, even though she's in her own home. And even that line where she was saying, in that conversation where she was saying, yeah, I gave you sleeping pills to help you sleep. She was a child. What are you doing, man?
It was over the counter.
Yeah,
I like that. That was good.
It's great how she's just trying to really convince Streep that was a good idea. It's just brilliant stuff from her. And her comedy stuff is like really kind of subtle as well. Again, she's going for more drama in her performance, I would say, but there are some little subtle things, certainly with the vodka bottle in the blender, pouring all the vodka in the blender. That was great. But yeah, I mean, even that meeting where she meets Jack Faulkner, Dennis Quaid's character, when Jack is picking Streep up, you can see that Shirley MacLaine's like, I'm not sure about you. What are you doing in my house? Leave my daughter alone. You know, she's just brilliant. So, favorite performance, people? Is it a full house for Meryl Streep, or anyone going any different?
That's it for me.
So I'm going to go Meryl Streep. Yeah.
No, Meryl Streep or full house. Yeah, I must say though, Shirley MacLaine is really right up there as a very, very, very close second for me.
Yeah. Terrible Oscar snub. It doesn't matter. Oscars don't matter, but it's Oscar season here now. So
it is indeed, yeah. As we record. So acting score, Bowers, what should we go for?
Oh, Jesus.
Like a flat 9?
Yeah, let's go a flat 9.
8.8?
Yeah, okay, 8.8. No, actually, let's go a flat 9.
Okay. No, I'm going higher than you. I'm bringing this up. This is one of the best acted movies I've ever seen. I'm going like 9.6.
Awesome.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's right.
Go big or go home.
Stay with us for our next film. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Let's add up the scores then for Postcards from the Edge. Great title as well. I can love that title.
Yeah. Well, then it opens in this it looks like a foreign country. So I was like, Postcards from the Edge. This is not what I expected, but it's...
Yeah.
It sounds like a war movie.
Yeah, it does sound like it should be.
Yeah, it does. It does look like it's kind of like opens like a spy war film, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Postcards from the Edge gets 52.2.
Hey!
Which is pretty good. That's it for part 1. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. Check out part 2 to see who wins. But don't stop there. Get involved and tell us what your favourite films are relating to the episodes. Send us a DM or comment on Instagram and TikTok at Film vs. Film Podcast, for Twitter at FVF_podcast. If you do, we'll give you a shout out on the next episode. If you're feeling really generous, you can buy us a one-off coffee at our Buy Me a Coffee account. Remember, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Pod signing off.